A near record-breaking heat wave puts us in weather alert. I'm timing out triple-digit heat indices and when cooler air will bring relief.
A Squeegee kid is convicted of voluntary manslaughter. We look at the defense's push to move the case to the juvenile system.
It was a waste of time. We're back where we were almost a year ago.
And why some say that's not the answer. Plus, 2 other high-profile convictions in Baltimore courtrooms. New tonight, what this means for City State's Attorney Ivan Bates' office and his mission to create a safer city.
That office is equipped and ramping up.
A new song from country music singer Jason Aldean is stirring up controversy as he performs in Maryland. We hear from fans on both sides of the issue.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. After days of deliberation, a 16-year-old Squeegee kid is convicted of voluntary manslaughter. He was accused of shooting and killing a Baltimore driver near the Inner Harbor. Now, that teen avoided first and second-degree murder convictions in the death of 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds last July. 2 families left the courtroom today not fully satisfied with the court's ruling. Reynolds' family attorney says while they wanted a murder conviction, today is the first step in their healing process. The teen's family was hoping for a full acquittal, but the defense says their fight isn't over.
Nothing that happened in the courtroom was going to bring Tim Reynolds back. There was going to be no winners in this case. But this conviction does bring a measure of comfort, of closure, of justice to the family.
He's been convicted of manslaughter, which makes him eligible to be transferred to juvenile court, which is what we're going to be pursuing. The jury found that, yes, he was somewhat justified.
That verdict is one of 3 convictions from the City State's Attorney's Office today. Keith Daniels will join us live with a closer look at the others coming up in just a few minutes. But our live team coverage begins with Jeff Abel and a look at what could come next for that Squeegee kid. Jeff?
As you mentioned, once again, the defense is now petitioning to have this case transferred to juvenile court, a place where the punishment would be a whole lot different. The verdict may be in, but the tug-of-war over what should happen to the 15-year-old defendant is still on.
See, it makes a hell of a difference whether he goes to school at the Department of Corrections or whether he goes to school at the Department of Juvenile Services.
If the case remains in the adult court, the teenager faces a maximum 35 years in adult prison. If the case is transferred to juvenile court, the teen could face as many as 6 years, a place which defense attorneys have long argued is the most appropriate place.
They certainly have the ability to provide the programs and services that this young man needs.
Right. After the verdict, State Senator Jill Carter tweeted that a lengthier sentence in the adult system would likely include parole and good time, which could cut the sentence by about a third, versus a potential 6-year juvenile court jurisdiction, which includes age-appropriate programs, education, treatment, rehabilitative services. What has been gained here for anyone?
They have ignored the fact that these services don't exist. They don't.
Activist Kenji Scott insists Maryland's juvenile justice system is sorely lacking the services many troubled teenagers need. In fact, a scathing audit of Maryland's juvenile justice facilities released last year uncovered a string of problems surrounding mental health treatment for teens. Auditors wrote that detention centers lack specialized resources and the particular professional clinical expertise and clinical staffing levels necessary to address the needs of this population. Maryland's new Secretary of Juvenile Services says he's now working to expand programs at institutions. After-school programs, he says, have already grown.
You got kids, they're in here for multiple problems. They got issues that we have to deal with when they come out. They got to finish school. They got to have job skills. They shouldn't be playing spades while they're in our facilities.
But despite a shortage of real programs for juvenile defendants, Scott, who once led a statewide juvenile justice coalition, is convinced the juvenile system is the most appropriate system for this latest convicted teenager.
If Maryland is not able to provide those services, let's make sure he gets a treatment plan where we can place him in an out-of-state facility and he gets the services he needs. Right now, it doesn't exist in Maryland, but he doesn't need to go to the Maryland Department of Corrections.
Well, defense attorneys say they also plan to appeal the decision to try this case in adult court. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Defense attorney Jeremy Eldridge says there are several factors to consider when a judge thinks about moving the case, the Squeegee case, to a juvenile system.
In the juvenile court, there's a balancing of the best interests of the child with obviously keeping the community safe. So this young man could be detained at a juvenile detention facility like Charles Hickey. This could be placed on GPS monitoring, community supervision, which I would liken to adult probation. There are a wider array of services that are offered, psychiatric, group, and individual counseling. But with an offense this serious, even if the case were transferred to the juvenile justice system, you have to expect that this young man would spend some time detained at a juvenile facility regardless.
Maryland's juvenile justice system has seen violent offenders slip through the cracks before. Antonio Bardney was 17 years old when he was arrested for armed carjacking in 2017. That case went to juvenile court, and he was sentenced to home confinement. He was arrested for murder a year later. While on pretrial release, authorities say he cut his ankle monitor and ran away. A reaction to today's verdict is pouring in across social media. Let's take a look at some of the responses here. They found the Squeegee kid guilty. I really feel so many mixed feelings about this. Here, someone saying, should have been murder charge, Baltimore will never learn. And this person says, the Squeegee boy murder case is unfortunate all around. 2 families destroyed, but a 14-year-old knows that murder is wrong. No matter how you split it. So he's going to have to answer for that, is what the saying is. Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Do you agree with the verdict in the Squeegee trial kid? So far, 57% of those who voted say no. You can head to foxbaltimore.com to weigh in. Well, the Squeegee trial verdict marks one of 3 high-profile convictions this week for City State's Attorney Ivan Bates. Some experts say Bates is backing up his promises after pushing a tougher stance on crime during the campaign. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us with a live look at the developments in court. Keith?
Well, Kyle, the 3 defendants in those cases are waiting now to be sentenced after all of them were convicted for their crimes. Baltimore City prosecutors may not be calling it a victorious week, but under new City State's Attorney Ivan Bates, his administration has in fact logged 3 successful prosecutions this week in 3 of the city's high-profile criminal cases. Former city prosecutor, now defense attorney, Jeremy Eldridge.
That office is equipped and ramping up,
helping to put it all into perspective.
So when you see 3 different prosecutions for violent crimes resulting convictions in high-profile cases, it tells criminal defendants and those in Baltimore City that are looking to commit crime that we're back living in a world of consequences.
The cases and the verdicts today. 21-year-old Chase Wilson found guilty of second-degree murder in the shooting death of Morgan State University security guard, 19-year-old Julian Frew, killed last August. Wilson, a former student at the school. Another verdict. A jury comes back with guilty for Michael Robertson for murdering his pregnant girlfriend and their unborn child. Akia Eggleston, the victim, went missing more than 6 years ago. And then guilty for 16-year-old Tavon Scott, the teen squeegee worker convicted in the shooting death of motorist Tim Reynolds, shot after confronting a group of youth with a swinging baseball bat at Light and Conway Streets last July. At the time, Scott, 14 years old, he was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter and 2 gun charges, but not guilty of murder charges.
I just think the young man's age and the fact that it was an adult with a bat who engaged him is what mitigated the consequences and the jury's decision.
Still, regarding cases involving illegal handguns, from the beginning, Bates vowed to crack down on criminals, bring stiffer penalties.
Well, if you're breaking the law, you're going to walk around for legal handguns on the streets, bring your toothbrush with you, because we're going to send you to jail.
And tonight, 3 defendants facing time behind bars under Bates.
More important than Ivan Bates just being the state's attorney is it's the jury that sent the message. It's other Baltimore City citizens that said, when you bring us a case and you prosecute it effectively, we are going to find criminals guilty of violent crime.
Well, James Bentley, the spokesman for Ivan Bates, told me in a statement tonight that these verdicts are, quote, a reflection of the state's attorney's commitment to taking violent offenders off the streets of Baltimore. Well, live tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Thank you, Keith. This week's wins for the city state's attorney's office are a contrast from what we saw under the office of Marilyn Mosby last year. Last spring, Mosby and her prosecutors lost 3 cases in a week, all 3 high-profile murder cases. All 3 ended in acquittals. Last summer, a Baltimore judge criticized former city state's attorney Marilyn Mosby in a conspiracy case over which he presided, involving 26 correctional officers at the Baltimore City Jail. The judge wrote staffing problems in the office resulted in what he called egregious failures. The judge ended up dropping the charges against all 26 officers. At the time, Fox 45 News found the city state's attorney's office was down between 80 and 100 prosecutors. Some legal experts told Fox 45 News the prosecutors on staff were inexperienced, had low morale, and high caseloads. Last month, city state's attorney Ivan Bates said he's still working to fill the vacancies, but he's making progress.
My goal has been to have 50 new state's attorneys since the election. We've already reached out to now that we have 40 new assistant state's attorneys, 12 of which who left the office and have returned since the election.
Fox 45 News has done extensive reporting on the problems within the city state's attorney's office. You can find more on this and the verdicts today on our website, foxbaltimore.com. One weather alert right now. Extreme heat could be putting a strain on the power grid. This is a live look at the Royal Farms in Hamden. It's completely dark. I just passed it, actually. A block of homes next to the Royal Farms also appears to be without power. Now, BGE is reporting about 1,000 people don't have power right now. The heat wave isn't ending anytime soon, unfortunately. Here's Chief Meteorologist Jonathan Myers with an update.
Yeah, it seemed like about a hour ago, we experienced a couple of power surges here at the station as well. So an excessive heat warning is in effect. This is for all those hot temperatures and the dangerous heat for tomorrow in this magenta area. It includes Baltimore City as well as Annapolis. Then there's a heat advisory for everybody else. Could feel as hot as 105. Maybe even 110 degrees. Today made it to, well, tied up with the hottest temperature of the summer, 97 here in Baltimore, 97 at Westminster. Could outdo that tomorrow as well as Saturday. We're still in the 80s. Missed a lot of the showers and thunderstorms, so that kept those temperatures up during the evening. Tomorrow, we're 98 to 100. Same deal here on Saturday as well. It's almost a carbon copy day. I'm going to let you know when we could finally see some relief around here. That's up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, Fox 45 News continues to press state leaders on juvenile justice laws in Maryland, the action some lawmakers plan to take to fix the problem. Country music star Jason Aldean sings his controversial new song at Columbia's Merriweather Post Pavilion. Closer look at that song and how Maryland fans are reacting. And coming up after the break, Fox 45 News presses City Council President Nick Mosby about the Safe Streets program, what he's saying and why some say politics is affecting his answers.
think really what Nick Mosby is doing is thinking about his political future.
Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby apparently sidesteps questions about the role of safe streets. Mosby says Baltimore police should take most of the criticism following the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Some political analysts say Mosby is being cautious with an eye toward the future. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains.
The focus of conversations 3.5 weeks after the Brooklyn mass shooting. What city agencies knew and when did they know about the potential threat at Brooklyn Day?
I know a lot of folks have brought up, what the housing authority should have known totally. Or, there's other city agencies or partners that were there that maybe should have alarmed the police department or others totally.
But those questions surrounding the responsibility of Safe Streets workers who were at the event before the shooting started remain unanswered. WBAL News Radio raising questions about the lack of transparency coming from the city agency implementing Safe Streets.
They're getting 100% of their money from the public. 100% of their dollar is paid by us.
During the city council hearing, leaders from the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement not answering questions directly if there were weapons involved in the 5 conflicts Safe Streets workers mediated.
When there is a weapon involved in an interruption or an interaction, we need to know about it. We also need to know something when we're paying for it.
But that wasn't information that the police department didn't already know. If our safeguard is having Safe Street go into a crowd, 4 guys go into a crowd of 700 people to communicate to our police department that there's guns and knives in there and that they should come in there, we have a problem.
Those questions continue to mount for the violence interruption program, especially when Monzi continues to fund the multi-million-dollar effort without providing many details about how that money is being spent.
I think he should be asking the questions, and there's a better way to ask them, but I think at the same time, he's thinking long-term.
Political analyst John Dede says Mosby doesn't want to rock the boat, and with Mayor Brandon Scott doubling down on Safe Streets, Dede says Mosby isn't looking to pick fights. He also says it's all because of Mosby's upcoming election fight.
I think Izzy Cohen's going to beat him rather handily. I think he's kind of laying the groundwork for what he does after he's city council president, because you don't want to create a situation where when you finally leave office, that no one wants to hire you because you're a pariah.
It's not just on the radio where Mosby refuses to point the finger at Safe Streets.
Looking at the order of priorities, it was probably dealing with the community and the family.
Last week, Mosby's quick to say Monzi and Safe Streets had other things to worry about after the mass shooting.
Whether it was the Safe Street workers or whether it was Monzi, they were really ground zero, working around the clock as it relates to the byproduct of that very devastating event.
Only going as far as saying the agency should have had more urgency in reviewing the details of the mediations completed by the violence interrupters before coming to the July 13th council hearing. As the investigation continues, Mosby says the focus should be on BPD and finding those responsible. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
It's been 24 days since the Brooklyn home shooting, and Baltimore police don't have any suspects in custody at this time. On July 2nd, shots were fired at the Brooklyn Day block party, killing 2 people, with 28 others being shot. Only 1 arrest has been made, a 17-year-old who's facing weapons and riot charges. That 17-year-old is not charged with shooting anyone. Sources tell Fox 45 News police found bullet casings from as many as 16 guns that could have been used. But as of now, again, they haven't named any suspects at this time. Since the shooting, Fox 45 News has been pressing city leaders for answers on the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement's role in the Brooklyn Day response. Monzi leaders tell Fox 45 News Safe Streets workers were at the Brooklyn Day block party and left before the shooting happened. They say those Safe Streets workers did mediate conflicts, but will not say what those mediations included, when they happened, or how they were reviewed. The Safe Streets workers are not city employees. They work for either LifeBridge or Catholic Charities, the nonprofits that run the various Safe Streets locations around the city. Catholic Charities runs the Safe Streets site that responded to the Brooklyn Day shooting. City council members questioned nonprofit leaders during a hearing on the shooting early this month. It was revealed those mediations were never reviewed.
Has anybody in Monsi then in your agency reviewed those 5 incidents before?
No, we have not reviewed those that have been put in.
We don't know if they are also the same, if they're connected to this event, or whether or not they're also people of interest in this event.
I can't say if that's true or false.
Fox 45 News pressed the mayor on how mediations are tracked and reported. We asked for the blank form workers fill out after those conflicts. We also wanted to know what defines a mediation, who oversees the documentation of conflicts, and what protocols are in place to ensure better communication among agencies about a potential threat. The mayor did not hand over any of that information, saying Safe Streets operations should not be made public.
Anyone that thinks that we're going to talk about an open investigation where someone could potentially be a witness in Baltimore, the city that we've seen witnesses killed, that's very irresponsible of anybody to do. We're not going to do that, period.
We also want to know how Safe Streets workers are trained and how they clock in and out of their shifts. In January, Baltimore City released more than 450 pages worth of Safe Streets related contracts after Fox 45 News threatened legal action. The contract shed light into how the program operates, but the names of the workers are redacted. Fox 45 News also asked the mayor what the public is supposed to base their trust on when it comes to Safe Streets workers if no information about them is available. It is important to note police officers' information is available to the public. Coming up, police say a drug dealer is sentenced in the overdose death of the Wire star Michael K. Williams. Why the show's creator was part of a group advocating for a lighter sentence.
And we remain under weather alert. It looks like overnight, not a whole lot of relief here. Temperatures going to be in the low to mid 80s through 10 p.m. all the way into tomorrow morning, still stifling. And temperatures get real hot next couple of days. After 97 today, we could threaten records. A record for tomorrow, 101, or actually 103 from back in 1941 and 101 on Saturday. And then a cool down for Sunday and Monday. I'll let you know if it comes with lower humidity and if the sun comes back in my Weather Authority forecast.
Former President Trump is facing more charges in his classified documents case. 3 new counts will include willful retention of national defense information and 2 obstruction charges related to possible attempts to delete surveillance footage of Mar-a-Lago. There's also a new defendant in the case. A Trump spokesperson says the charges are another attempt by the Biden administration to harass the former president and influence the 2024 election. New questions about how Hunter Biden's federal court case may factor into his father's future after a judge put his plea deal on hold. National correspondent Christine Frizzell has the story.
Hunter Biden's day in court, yet another reminder that we've come a long way from this moment.
I am absolutely certain, 100% certain, that at the end of the investigation, that I will be cleared.
Instead of cleared, he was charged with plans to plead guilty that fell apart before a judge who wanted to know if a guilty plea would give the younger Biden blanket immunity in future cases. When prosecutors said no, the deal stalled.
I think the judge was like, wait a minute, something doesn't smell right here.
Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan telling us his committee's focus has been the role of the Justice Department in the investigation. And moving forward, he may support opening an impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
Frankly, makes it a little easier to get the information you want to get. And courts have said, you know, turn over the documents so everybody, it's almost like discovery, so everybody gets the information.
Just as the president gears up for his next White House run, brand new questions about another Biden business deal. Artwork sold by Hunter Biden that brought in $1.3 million. Among the buyers, a Democratic donor friend, Elizabeth Naftali, later appointed to a prestigious commission. Plus, growing criticism over the president not acknowledging his 7th grandchild, a 4-year-old girl Hunter fathered with an exotic dancer, confirmed by DNA evidence. Democrats accusing Republicans of playing politics.
We cannot be judging the president or a father based on actions of what a son is doing. I think a lot of us have family, and oftentimes our family does things that we may not agree with.
All of this as House Republicans push forward with their investigations into the Biden family, with 2 big names expected to speak to them soon. First, Hunter Biden's former business partner, Devin Archer, in the coming days, and then U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who led the federal probe sometime this fall, just as the presidential campaign really starts to heat up. On Capitol Hill, I'm Christine Frizzell.
Ahead at 10:30, country star Jason Aldean is in Maryland. Why one of his songs is stirring up controversy. And communities across the state are seeing a massive spike in car thefts. Now officials are working to put a halt to the thieves. We're following three big stories at 10:30. The country music star controversy, why one artist's lyrics are causing outrage as he takes the stage at Merriweather Post Pavilion. And juvenile justice laws in the spotlight for some state lawmakers, the renewed investigation into how the laws could be leading to public safety issues. And a viral social media trend leading to a spike in stolen cars across the state. The alarming numbers behind thefts of Kias and Hyundais. Well, Baltimore City has seen more than 5,000 car thefts in just the first 7 months of the year, including nearly 50 a day over the past month. And now we're learning Baltimore isn't the only place dealing with the problem. Fox 45's Amy Simpson explains.
Across the scanner overnight Tuesday into Wednesday.
We've had a departmental car that's been stolen with police equipment in it.
An unmarked police vehicle, a silver 2018 Kia Optima, stolen just blocks from Baltimore Police headquarters downtown.
The detective's going to be standing out there next to the broken glass.
This comes as new data from BPD paints a grim picture of car thefts citywide. Just last week, 383 cars stolen across Baltimore. In the last month, more than 1,300 driven off. And so far this year, more than 5,000 cars taken in the city. Each metric up significantly year over year. Some pointing to juveniles for the stats.
They're just running around and like it's a game to them, stealing these cars, and it has dangerous consequences. It's that TikTok challenge.
But it's not just Baltimore City plagued by car thieves. In Baltimore County, the data for stolen Hyundais and Kias speaks for itself. So far this year, Baltimore County Police report 587 stolen Hyundais and 240 stolen Kias. Together, that's more than 1,000% increase year over year in thefts of just these two makes of cars. And in Howard County, police say at least 14 cars have been stolen over the last week, a total of 78 stolen in the last month, and of the 379 cars stolen in Howard County so far this year, 243 of them either a Hyundai or a Kia. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, Baltimore leaders reached a settlement with Hyundai and Kia for $200 million. Part of an ongoing lawsuit claiming those cars were too easy to steal and the thefts were a public nuisance. But one Kia owner who recently had her car stolen is questioning if city leaders are addressing the root of the issue. She says they should be focused more on criminals and not companies.
The city of Baltimore should be responsible as well for the amount of thefts. They should serve time. It should be looked at as any type of theft.
Brunel Knight also says her car was stolen right across from a city surveillance camera, which apparently wasn't working at the time.
They told me that it's not working, that it's spinning out of control, and that they tried to fix it, but they have not fixed it yet.
Well, her car was recovered, but she tells Fox 45 News her insurance company dropped coverage just before the car was stolen. She couldn't afford to change her ignition from a keyed start to a push-button start, something her insurance company is demanding because of the rise in thefts of Kias and Hyundais. Fox 45 News demands answers from state leaders as to whether juvenile justice laws in Maryland are contributing to a rise in youth crime and the potential public safety concerns around those laws. Brad Bell from our Sinclair sister station in Washington has been following the issue for months and reports from Annapolis.
Look, these juvenile justice reforms passed the legislature easily. There was overwhelming support. The idea here is to treat children as children and not to criminalize them at a young age. But we have been hearing it from police, prosecutors, judges alike that the laws are backfiring, and now the legislators say, yeah, they're feeling the heat.
As juvenile crime continues to spike, we've learned 2 Maryland legislative committees are planning to dig into the accusation that juvenile justice reform laws they've passed are contributing to the problem. The House Judiciary Chair announcing with this letter a September hearing to, quote, address the intersection of juvenile justice and gun crimes. Senate Judicial Proceedings Chair Will Smith says he, too, is seeking answers.
I think a lot of the reforms we put in place over the course of years will bear long-term fruit and ultimately make our system more just and our society more safe. But we have to acknowledge the crisis that we're in.
I am concerned that in some instances, the legislature got involved in redrafting fundamental principles of constitutional law.
Montgomery County State's Attorney John McCarthy wants the legislature to know he has a list of new laws he'd like changed. 1, the complete prohibition on charging those 13 and under. 2, the prohibition on detaining a juvenile for technical probation violations. 3, capping probation at 6 months. 4, a prohibition on detaining a juvenile for misdemeanors. McCarthy says those misdemeanors are often assaults committed by repeat offenders.
They come in, we can't detain them, they're back in the community the next day. They get picked up for the second one, can't detain them. They're back in the community again the next day. They pick up a third, they're back in the community again the next day. That is frustrating to the community and frustrating to us because without the detention, we are, in many instances, we're really not getting the attention of the child.
Smith says he hears the concerns loud and clear, but cautions wholesale changes are not likely.
That doesn't mean we can't tweak, and we are going to tweak.
So he's talking about tweaks. What those adjustments may be, we don't know. The senator says this will be a top priority the next legislative session, and the decisions they make then will be informed by the work and the research that they're doing now and into the fall. In Annapolis, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
Well, Brad mentioned next year's session, but some lawmakers are looking to tackle juvenile crime sooner than that, calling for a special session to address youth crime. Now, those calls reignited by this month's mass shooting in Brooklyn homes, in which 15 juveniles were among the 30 victims. A 17-year-old is the only person arrested so far facing weapons and riot charges. Republicans are citing 2 crime bills that haven't made it out of committee. The Repeat Violent Offenders Act would toughen penalties for gun crime, and there's also a bill that would make possession of a stolen firearm a felony.
The governor very easily can say, I want to see these 2 pieces of legislation on my desk. He's got that type of power in the state of Maryland when he's got control of both the House and the Senate to be able to make that kind of statement. And that's what I'm looking forward to hearing from the governor.
From what I gathered and saw, somebody that is willing to carry around a gun and then shoot up 30 people or several individuals, whether or not there's a new law passed in Annapolis isn't stopping that decision.
In a statement to Fox 45 News, Governor Moore's office says there are no plans for a special session, but they're open to exploring all possible options to curb gun violence. Early this month, we asked you if you think the governor should call a special session to combat violent crime. 93% of those who responded said yes. Country music star Jason Aldean is at Merriweather Post Pavilion, bringing controversy with him. Thousands of fans gathered tonight to hear his song, Try That in a Small Town, which has been met with backlash over its undertones of racism and violence. Fox 45's Vincent Hill explains.
Well, as you can hear, Jason Aldean is on stage, but not all his fans agree with the lyrics to his biggest song. 1, 2. Some call Jason Aldean's Try This in a Small Town his best piece of work.
I think it's the best song that he released.
The song, the center of controversy because of its lyrics, some say are divisive and racist. Supporters of the song say the lyrics are being misconstrued.
I've heard very vulgar things about everything, but there's nothing here in this that states anything that would be wrong with any of that.
Some of the lyrics include, got a gun my granddad gave me, and see how far you make it down the road. Despite undertones of violence, fans of the song say it's about patriotism.
He's tired of what's going on in our country. Yeah. He wants everyone to be as we were.
But not all Jason Aldean fans are particular fans of the images behind the song.
I think the video is what is more the issue than the actual song itself.
Crimes committed by blacks captured on camera and a very controversial part of U.S. history.
The Tennessee courthouse where lynchings were happening, right? So that image right there is problematic. So I've watched the video. So I really do see a lot of racial undertones or tones to that material.
Steve Vassello says those undertones are evident from the first note of the song.
There is the antagonistic representation, right, between, I think, white and black people there, just in that very first line.
Now, the video to the song has been edited since its original release to remove some footage of Black Lives Matter protests in 2020. In Columbia, Vincent Hill, Fox 45 News.
Well, let's take a look right now at the Fox box. On the top left, beer maker Anheuser-Busch says it's laying off a few hundred positions across the United States corporate staff. It comes amid slumping sales of Bud Light. The brand got wrapped up in a political controversy when a transgender influencer posted a photo of a custom Bud Light can the company sent her. And top right, Michigan is now the 22nd state to outlaw conversion therapy for minors. That's a controversial practice aimed at changing a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. Governor Larry Hogan banned that practice in Maryland in 2018. Bottom left, Congress held a hearing on gender therapies for children today. Former University of Pennsylvania swimmer Leah Thomas testified during that hearing, saying the university forced women to fear for their safety when it allowed a transgender swimmer into a women's locker room. While many Republicans want to ban gender-affirming care for minors, Democrats are condemning the effort. On the bottom right, lawmakers unveiled bipartisan school safety legislation today. It would require silent panic alarms in elementary and secondary schools and reauthorize a program to train school resource officers. Still ahead, a deadly bar fight caught on camera, but the suspect escapes. The efforts to track him down